Hey folks, this is Hal Shutleff with Camp Constitution, and I am here with Mr. Bill Glenny, who's 90 years young today. It's early May of 2018, and we are in western Massachusetts in the beautiful city of Chicopee, where he currently resides. And Mr. Glenny has an incredible story. He was a guard at Nurenberg Prison. He was involved with the very first round of the major war criminals. So, Bill, tell us a little bit about yourself before we discuss your experiences at Nuremberg.
Oh, okay. Well, I was 18 years old when I was drafted. That's in 1945. I was 18, and I wanted to get in the service. You know, I could have played with the Army band at Westover Field, right
here in.
I didn't want to play with the band. I wanted to go overseas where the action was. I just wanted to see some action, which I did. Of course, when the trials were over, these men hung and the trials were over, I did qualify to play with the Army band, and I did end up my career in the service playing with the 1st Division Army Band.
Mm-hmm.
Great, and well, I had it made if you played the band.
How many years did you serve in the U.S. Army?
I went in 1945. Was drafted in September, somewhere around November, and I got out somewhere in 1947.
So you did your 3 years, basically 3 years.
No, I didn't go in 3 years. I went in for a little less than 2 years.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yes. I got out and I was 47, and it was quite an experience.
Now you married your sweetheart.
That's right.
And you worked at the Springfield Armory here in, which is now a museum.
Exactly.
The home of the M1 Garand, among other fine weapons.
Oh yes, and I met Mr. Goring himself.
Did you really? Yeah.
Yes, he lived
Fascinating.
in Springfield. I was over his house, and I got his autograph.
Really?
I have the last armor that came out of the Springfield Armory. I have the last armor. There's quite a little section in there that tells you about the M1 and Goring, and I had him sign it, his autograph.
That's
on
wonderful.
So I've got one of the very few copies of the last armor, all signed by the general that was there at the time. There's a colonel that was there. It's signed by all these people, and it's a document.
And it closed, the Armory closed, what, about 68 or 69, somewhere around there?
Yeah, somewhere around there. I don't remember exactly.
So now you got to, by the time you did your training, you were in Germany, and it was February of 1946.
Exactly.
And the trial was already several months. It got underway, what, November of 45?
Yes.
And there were 21 of the Nazis that were on trial?
21 major war criminals that were represented at the trials. There was more than that, but they weren't there, like Martin Bormann.
He was tried in
He was tried in absentia.
absentia, yeah.
Were found guilty, and if they would have found them, they would have hung them.
Now, Robert Lay, who was the in charge of labor,
Yes.
he committed
slave labor
suicide.
chief. He's one of these. Yes, he did.
He committed the first or second week of the trial.
Yeah. Yes. Well, I was in his cell. I said, how can a person in there? You're being watched 24 hours at the time, but at that time they weren't.
They weren't.
Watched 24 hours.
So you got there in February. So tell us about your initial experiences as a guard and how you end up going to the guarding the Nuremberg prisoners.
Oh, okay. I went into service and I went overseas, landed at Le Havre, France, got off, and I was indoctrinated to go to Germany and to find out where I was going to be stationed. And my first assignment was not the Nuremberg trials, but it was at this prisoner of war camp. We used to call it Stalag D13 or Langfoss. And I stayed there for a few months, February, March, April, almost till May. And it was about 20,000 SS men we guarded. Then after we start releasing them, I was relieved of my position there, and I was transferred to the Nuremberg trials to let some of the combat men go home. and I wound up in Nurenberg with these prisoners. Well, I can tell you a little story about Hans Frank, when I guarded Hans Frank. Hans Frank was the Governor General of Poland, brutal man. When they put a rope around his neck to hang him, the last statement he made before he hung was, I am thankful for the kind treatment that I have received while in prison, and I ask God to accept me with mercy. I remember that.
Interesting. Were you there when he was hanged?
I wasn't there when he hung. There's very few people. The colonel had very few people there. I got this from one of the reporters from Time magazine. I read the article that he wrote, and I got it from one of the reporters that was there. He was a witness to the hangings, reporters. So you know, it was kind of brutal, you know, for a man to believe in God, and all of a sudden he's so brutal. This man was terrible. Of course, and Hermann Goring, well, he was. Rudolf Hess was the most difficult prisoner to
and you pretty much guarded all of them at some point, because you would.
I seen them all almost every other day I was there.
So you would be assigned not the same one, but different ones all the time.
Different ones all the time.
So a typical day would be 2 hours, and you would actually simply watch when they're in the cell. You would simply just keep an eye on them the whole time.
That's it. That's it. And the colonel, before you go on the cell.
And that's Colonel
Andrews.
Andrews.
Colonel Andrews would come in and interview you personally. He'd interview. So we were going on the cells. There's about, I don't know, 3 or 4 guards, maybe 5. I don't remember. So we're waiting for the colonel. So anyway, I don't know. We were in this room. So all of a sudden, some lieutenant comes in and screams his lungs off. Attention! My God! And this colonel comes in. It's the way he was. He says he wished he could get all men that lieutenants from West Point. You know, they were so well trained. And of course, he was from the old school. You know, anything above his rank, he'd listen to, and he'd do. Anything below his rank, he'd squash. You don't tell me what to do. So that's the old school man he was, and he hated lieutenants. So anyway, he comes in and he tells us, "You men are going to be on the cells." He says, "Your job, you'll be on there 2 hours on and 4 hours off for 24 hours. The prisoners aren't allowed to start any lengthy conversations with you. They can ask you what time is it. You can tell them the time, but no lengthy conversation, or you'll be court-martialed." And the prisoners, when they sleep, they don't sleep with their hands underneath the blankets. You put a light in this window in the door, and you watch them sleep. They don't put their hands underneath the blanket. They keep them out, and they're supposed to face the light all the time. They can't turn their backs away from the light. You got to watch them continuously, and they're not supposed to turn their back on you for any length of time. You yell at them, tell them to turn around, and you know, ridiculous rules like this.
It's probably duty you didn't particularly like, did you?
Oh no, it was ridiculous. Well, the first man I guarded was Franz von Papen. He was probably more responsible for getting Adolf Hitler into power than
he had been
else.
Wasn't he the chancellor,
yes.
prior to Hitler's ascension?
And he got, yes.
Yeah.
So I was setting up my first prisoner was Franz von Papen, and I was setting up this light in the window so I could watch him. And I was having trouble trying to get it in. It was the first time. We had these little wires that we'd put a screen up there, and we had these little pieces of wire that we attached to it so you could hold this light there. That was a shield around the light like this, so you could watch him. I was having a little trouble with this. So he come up to me on the other side, and in perfect English, some things you never forget as long as you live. You know, I was 18 years old. I'm meeting the greatest criminals in history, and I'm actually there with them. So Franz von Papen comes up, and he says to me in perfect English, he said, "Would you mind shining the lights on the other side of the wall? Otherwise, the glare from the light will keep me awake all night."
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, I thought that was reasonable, but I was so surprised to hear him speak English. He spoke better English than
Perfect
I did.
English, yes. Yeah.
Perfect. So he says, no. I was a little nervous, you know. I said, my God, this man here, I wonder how many languages he speaks.
I believe Papen was in New York during, he spent some time in the United States.
Yes, he did.
Yeah.
He did. He was some kind of a spy.
Prior to World War I or during World War, yeah.
Yeah. So anyway, I was turning the light a little so it shined on the other side. He would get the full glare of the light. I shined it on the other side of the wall. And he said, "Can I give you a hand?" I said, "Yes." So he was on the inside tightening up these little wires that were holding this light, and we got it set pretty good. And I said, "How's that?" And he says, "That's fine."
Mm-hmm.
He said, "Thank you." So he went to bed. So I said, "Geez, what a nice guy." He didn't look like any type of murder. None of them did, you know.
And he was actually acquitted. He was acquitted at Nuremberg.
Acquitted,
Yeah.
yes.
The bankers usually get away with these kinds of things, don't they?
Yes. Well,
Now
there
you,
was three of them that were acquitted, actually.
Yeah.
And he was one of them. And well, anyway, he went to bed, and all of a sudden, you know, his hands are on the outside like that, and all of a sudden he puts one hand underneath the blanket. So I'm looking, I said, "Well, that's against the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Not supposed to do that." And I said, "Well, what am I going to do? Tell him to take the hand out, and he'll be doing this all night?"
Mm-hmm.
So I didn't say anything. Then he put the other hand underneath. So he was sort of conning me to see what he could get away with, I guess. I don't know. So I'm saying to myself, you know, I grew up like that, you know, going to parochial school and sisters. I said, I would never do anything that I wouldn't be able to do myself. I wouldn't be able to sleep in front of a light like that, or I'd have to put my hands underneath the blanket, you know. So I said,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna say anything. If anybody comes by and says, "Oh, he just put his hands under there," then I'd yell. You know, I had always a good excuse. So anyway, he puts the other hand underneath, and I said, "No, he's breaking the rules. I
Mm-hmm.
could get court-martialed easy for this."
Mm-hmm.
So I says, "The heck, let him sleep." I says, I can't, I wouldn't be able to sleep like that.
Right.
Then he turns away from the light. That was another. And I says, I couldn't sleep in a light like that myself, so he broke me in the right way. After that, he sort of gave me an idea of what to do. What the other prisoner wasn't that strict. Neither were the other guards.
Mm-hmm.
So
I don't think it's an American, it's not the American way, so to speak, to be that way. Now, you mentioned that Hess was the most difficult prisoner. What was your experience with Hess?
Rudolf Hess. Well, true Gilbert.
No, Gilbert was a
The
psychiatrist.
psychiatrist, you know, he mentioned I had an idea of what I was going to get, you know, from Rudolf Hess. A matter of fact, the captain of the guard said nobody got Rudolf Hess's autograph. Well, he's wrong. I got it.
You got
and I'm
it.
sure some other people got it. You know, I'm not the only one. He mentioned that, like I mentioned, he says Rudolf Hess. He says, in layman's term, he put it like this: if the road was sanity and the sidewalk insanity, Rudolf Hess is walking on the curb.
On the curb, yeah.
So he's not balanced. His mind is not quite there. And the psychologist put it like this. He says, in layman's terms, Rudolf Hess has got what you call a deteriorating mind.
Mm-hmm.
He could be perfectly normal for maybe 5 minutes,
Mm-hmm.
and then he comes completely gone, you know. So had an idea, you know, I got to catch him at the right time. So when I went to get his autograph, I says, by that time I had these little pieces of paper.
And he spoke some English too, wasn't he? Was he fluent in English, or he spoke some?
I don't believe he
No.
spoke English. If he did, it was very little.
Yeah.
I never heard him speak English. Well, anyway, I went up to the cell and I says, Hess. You know, and he turns around. I said, your autograph. You know, I was putting this in the window, in front of the window. Autograph. So he didn't know what I meant. 9, and he's yelling.
Yeah.
9. So I said, oh, Jesus, I better not catch
You'd be in trouble.
This isn't a bad time.
Yeah.
Yes. You know, get court-martialed for this. So I put the pen away. So I asked again, you know, no, that's not from me, you know, that. And I finally got him. You know, I said, not from me, for officer.
Oh.
So and he's looking like that on it. And he comes over and he grabs it. And he signed his autograph and gave it to me. So I had to wait for the right time to get him. And then I told him it's for the officer, and I got it.
Now, you also you met Goring there. You guarded him for a while.
Yeah.
And tell us a little bit about your experiences with Hermann Goring.
Oh, when I first met Hermann Goring, you know, I was coming down. They had all the 21 major war criminals in one cell, one the block. There's three floors to the prison. All the major war criminals were put on the first floor,
First tier,
the first
yeah.
dock. You know, so they were all numbered off there. So when I seen Goring, you know, when I first went down there, they had the name plates over the cell doors. And I seen cell number 5 was Hermann Goring. So I said, oh, there's Hermann Goring. So I went over to see Hermann Goring, and he was sitting in his cot, smoking a pipe and reading a paper. And I looked in the window in the door. It's a wood door with a window, and like I said, about 15 inches square, 20 inches, somewhere around there. And I looked in there, I said, so that's Hermann Goring. Well, he doesn't look like such a big man in prison. You know, right away Goring turns around and starts staring at me. And he giving me these dirty looks, and that, you know, and I'm continuing. I says, well, look at that. I says, what's he gonna do in prison? You know, there's nothing much he can do now. He's not a big man. And the guard grabbed me by my coat, my little jacket. And he pulled me back, and he says, Goring can speak English. He says, if he turns you in, you can get court-martialed. So I said, well, I better keep my big mouth shut. Then I went over to von Papen, who was my first.
Now, Goring was when he was first surrendered, he was grossly overweight, and he was on various narcotics, an addict. But the colonel there
codeine, I think it was
it codeine? But I understand that he lost a lot of weight in jail and got off the drugs, right?
Yes,
Yeah.
and when he did that, his mind turned right back, really sharp. They probably should have left him on drugs, you know, because when they took them. He was taking something like 20 pills a day or whatever, these paracodines.
Because he was wounded in World War I, and I think that's what led him initially to the addiction.
Yeah, probably, yes. So anyway, they finally got him off this, and when he did, of course, then he only ate just a certain amount of food. When we used to feed them, we'd have like a potato, a vegetable, maybe meat, little meat. Everybody got the same portion. So Goring naturally started losing weight.
Mm-hmm.
When he started losing weight, his mind started coming back, and he got very, very interested in the trial, and it got so that he was a brilliant man. He was really a brilliant man.
Now, you've been asked this, I'm sure, numerous times, but what is your theory, if that's the right word, on how Goring got the poison, the cyanide?
Well,
and this was, what, 2 hours before he was supposed to be hanged?
Somewhere around there,
yeah.
When Goring was captured, he had 3 capsules with him. The first one, 3 cyanide capsule, and the capsules, as a matter of fact, I took a picture, I've got a picture, of the capsule that he committed suicide with.
Mm-hmm.
This Dr. Latimer got this from Tex Wheelis, who first had it.
No, it's Tex Wheelis.
Tex Wheelis.
Mm-hmm.
He was at the Nurenberg trial.
And he was a private lieutenant.
He was a
Okay,
lieutenant. And well, wait a minute. Goring had 3 capsules. He allowed the first one to be found. So he said, "Oh, we got the capsule now. We don't have to worry."
Mm-hmm.
He had 2 others. The second one he committed suicide with. The third one he had in a jar of face cream.
Mm.
Because the second one he wrote when he took it and committed suicide, but he left a note stating that he had a third one that was located in his jar of Vaseline, where they checked and there was.
Now, who found him in the cell after he committed suicide? Oh, okay, yeah.
When he took the cyanide, the guard noticed. He just choked up and he started.
It acts very fast.
Yeah, he was moving around and he couldn't breathe, and a guard called, yelled, "Something's wrong with Goring, something's wrong with Goring." But by the time they got there, it was too late. He was dead.
He was dead.
Cyanide did.
But there wasn't any evidence or enough evidence to indict anybody, to accuse anybody.
No, the investigation wasn't that. They just wanted to get the trials over when
Mm-hmm.
we were having trouble with the Russian airlift at the time. So let's get this over.
Yeah.
And they didn't even interview Tex Wheelis. They didn't interview. Well, all they found is pieces of. They found a little capsule that this tube of cyanide was in, and little pieces of glass where he bit into it.
Mm-hmm.
So they got evidence that he had this little tube, and it was just like a lipstick, a tube of lipstick,
vial,
except it was a capsule, like from a bullet. You take a cap off,
Mm-hmm.
and inside was the glass jar of cyanide. Yeah,
And you just
I've
bite
seen
it.
that. Yeah.
But Tex had a watch. Herman Goring gave Tex his watch.
He gave him a watch. He gave him a pair of gloves. He was very friendly. The night of the hangings. This is give you an idea, probably how, because I was asked, do you think that he could have had this capsule on him all the while he was in prison?
Mhm.
No, he couldn't have. And Goring says he kept it up his rectum, and he put it in his high. No, I said, if he left us or in a cell, okay, he could leave it in the cell, but if he left the cell, go to the courtroom, we could take his belongings, put it in another cell, and when he'd come back, he wouldn't see that cell.
Mm-hmm.
So this is impossible. And to put him in the high boots, you would have seen it. I went in the prison. In other words, when the prisoners go to the courtroom, we release them to go to the courtroom, and we go inside the cell to search it.
Mm-hmm.
All they have is a change of clothes. That's all. And I looked at the bowl. I went with a sergeant and we're looking. So he says, "Look at the bowl." So I looked inside the bowl, and I couldn't see anything. There's a rim around the bowl, and I says, "I can't see up there." And I said, "I can't put my hands. I don't want to put my. I've got to have some gloves." He said, "Never mind. That's all right." Maybe he could have had it up there, but I doubt it. The way he got the cell is he got a hold of Tex Wheelis. This was verified by his son, Tex Wheelis. Tex Wheelis' son said, "If it wasn't for my father, Herman Goring would have hanged at Nurenberg."
Mm.
So that's sure. And I said, if it wasn't for Tex, that Tex Wheelis did have something to do with procuring this cyanide. So Goring must have told Tex, "Look, I have face cream or whatever." Goring had a whole pile of luggage in a baggage room which was held in 2 cells, all the prisoners there.
Mm-hmm.
had two cells where they put all their belongings. So he probably told Tex, Tex probably went with him to the baggage room, and Tex is the only one, we didn't have any bolts or locks on the doors. We didn't have any keys or locks, It was just a bolt that you slam open the door.
So it was easy to get in and get it. It was pretty easy to get it.
Well, Tex had to have the key for the baggage room.
Oh, I
before
see,
you did.
yeah.
So Tex probably let him in the baggage room, go ahead, get what you want. Goring took the pill, came back. Now he had maybe for a couple of hours until he decided this is the time to take it. That makes sense.
From the time of the verdicts to the hangings, how many days was it? It was pretty quick though, wasn't it? Was it a matter of a few days?
No, it was probably a week or so.
A week,
It was quite a while. It wasn't 2 or 3 days.
What was the difference in the demeanor from before the verdict to after the verdict? Because quite a few of them were hanged. There was some that were acquitted and some got jail sentences.
Oh yes, there were 11 were condemned to hang, with the exception of Goring, who committed suicide, and 7 of them, I believe,
Got jail sentences.
receive lesser prison terms. 3 were acquitted, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21.
21.
Or 8 were received, 3 were acquitted anyway. And Chirac and Spear got 20 years in prison. I believe Radar.
10, was it 10?
10 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Donuts
rest
got,
life.
I think, 10 years.
10 years,
Yeah.
yes. Donuts, yes. I
Yeah.
think he was the,
He was the one that Hitler, after Hitler was gone, he put in his will, he made him head of the Third Reich, and I thought, what a terrible thing to inherit, Of all the things to inherit, and it was his job to surrender.
God. Yeah.
What of the prisoners made of him? What made the biggest impression? Were there anyone that you would say, I'll never forget this person?
Well, Hermann Goring.
Hermann Goring.
If you met Hermann Goring, you'd never forget him. He was the most dominating figure in there. Everybody looked at Hermann Goring.
He was the boss, so to speak.
He's the boss, and he's going to be the boss. And in prison, he's still the boss. So what he said, he expected everybody to go along with it.
As you said, you met von Papen, and he seemed like a very likable person.
Yeah.
Julius Streicher was another. Now he was, even among the Nazis, they were embarrassed by him.
Yeah.
Some of the top Nazis. What can you tell me about Julius?
Well, Julius Streicher couldn't speak English. When I was getting autographs, I started getting the autograph. I went to get his autograph. So I said, Julius, I don't know if I call him Julius or Streicher or what. Julius. He turned around and I said, autograph. And he says, how did he put it? He says, Kaugummi. He wanted some Kaugummi. I never forgot that word. You know what Kaugummi means in German?
No.
Kaugummi is chewing gum.
Oh, okay.
He wanted some, most of them will last for cigarettes, but he had a big water gum he used to chew in his cell. And Kaugummi, and I says, I don't have any now. Autograph, I'll get it after, So anyway, I conned him in to him getting his autograph. It's on there. He gave me his autograph. He never got the chewing.
Never got the gum. Oh, so you got it over. Yeah, you have. You actually have the. This is a copy, of course. You can just open it on holding it up. This is so the various signatures.
And this is the way they. All right, let's see. We'll get to how many. Okay, right.
Yeah, the lighting isn't perfect in here, but
the first row.
Yeah.
This is the first row. This is the second row. Goring sat right at the beginning of the prisoner's dock. You go Goring, Hess, Ribbentrop.
Oh, so you got them in order, huh? Yeah. Now the military men, the generals, were they a little different? Were they more arrogant? Because here you are, just an American private, or and here you're their boss now.
Yeah.
Yeah.
They well, let me tell you, the 2 prisoners were Field Marshal Keitel and Alfred Jodl
Jodl.
represented the whole of
The
the German
Wehrmacht,
armies.
yeah, yeah.
Field Marshal Keitel was more or less commander-in-chief of the German army. Of course, Hitler was a supreme commander,
Right.
naturally.
Right.
When they received the verdict, the military men, when they received the verdict, which was death by hanging,
Mm-hmm.
they didn't reject the
Death.
the method. They didn't reject the death sentence, but the method of execution they wanted changed. So through their lawyer, they went to the court and they said, through their lawyer, they said, we are professional soldiers.
Mm-hmm.
All their lives, they were professional Prussian soldiers in the German army.
Junkers.
We only,
Yeah.
right. We followed orders and obeyed our orders. We are not criminals. We are soldiers, and we would like the method of execution changed from hanging to a firing squad,
Mm-hmm.
which is an honorable death.
Compared
You
to
only
hanging, yeah.
You only hang
Criminals and spies,
Criminal,
usually, yeah.
So we're not criminals, we're soldiers.
Mhm.
We want to be executed by a firing squad.
Mm-hmm.
And the courts turned around and said, you are not soldiers, you are criminals, and you will hang as criminals.
Mm.
And they did.
Mm.
They hung as criminals.
So right after the hangings, that's when you had another assignment.
When the hangings took place, I tried out for the 1st Division Army Band,
Mm-hmm.
and naturally I passed.
Mm-hmm.
And I finished up my career in the service with the 1st Division Army Band.
That's great. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time. This is an incredible story from, a first-hand experience. So God bless you. And there's been some articles written about you. So if people want to learn more, I guess you can just put your name on a search engine, and they could probably find and find some articles. So great. Thank you.
Look up Nurenberg trials, William H. Glenny, or Shoah. Steven Spielberg. I got interviewed by Steven Spielberg.
Oh, did you? Yeah.
He interviewed about 45,000 people.
Wow.
I don't want the Holocaust to ever be forgotten.
Mm-hmm.
And look up Shoah and look up William Glenny. Shoah in Hebrew means
Genocide.
Holocaust.
Oh, yeah. Genocide or Holocaust. Yeah.
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 Yeah,
Well, thank you so much.
Oh, that's
All right.
all right.
God bless you.
God bless you.